Welcome to the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. I'm Melisa Lieberman, a fellow IC and business coach. On this podcast, I teach you to become a consistently booked independent consultant without becoming a pushy salesperson or working 24/7. If I can do it, you can too. Listen on to find out how. Welcome to this week's episode. Today, we're talking about what to do when the market is soft. I have been hearing this a lot. You might be listening and have been one of the people who have said to me, I'm worried the market is soft, or I'm not sure if I can keep going. It feels like the market is too soft. Or, I've been laid off. I've been wanting to do independent consulting for so long. I feel like this is the best time for me to go all in, but I'm worried the market is soft. I just am wrapping up a client and I'm worried the market is soft. My client, it sounds like it might end early. I'm worried the market is soft. Whatever is happening for you, that is a very common concern, whether you're saying it out loud to someone like me or to your family, or you're saying it to yourself and may even be just subconsciously worrying. And so today I really want to focus in on this because I think it's so important to keep a handle on this type of a situation in your brain when you're worried about something in your business, especially something that feels so out of control, such as the market is soft, and how you can go through managing this so you don't see yourself in a position where you are going back to corporate, even though you truly, truly do not want to do that. So that is why we're here today. We're going to talk about what to do when the market is soft. With that, let's talk about the agenda. Specifically, I am going to walk you through two paths today, and they're all based on the question, is it true that the market is soft? We're going to go down two paths. One is, yes, it's true, the market is soft. Now what? And the second path we're going to go down is, no, it isn't true. And now what? So it's really important for you to be able to go down both of these paths, and I'll walk you through them today and help you get to the place where you're feeling more settled, where you're feeling more calm, where you're feeling more resolute as you're thinking about your business and the way you're acquiring new clients and the health of your pipeline. All of this relates back to some of the questions and techniques that I'm going to share with you today. So even if you're not worried about the market being soft, I'm definitely not here to add any fuel to the fire here. If you're not worried about the market being soft, as you're listening to this episode, just think about whatever you might be worried about in your business. It might not necessarily be the market, it might be something else. So you can use the techniques and tools that I'm going to share with you today and apply it to your business in that sense. So this is an episode for you if you are an independent consultant, no matter what you're worried about. Before we dive into the first part of the agenda, I want to share with you the companion resource that goes with this episode, and it is the Recession Readiness Assessment. It is an assessment that I've created for you specifically as an independent consultant. It asks you, I believe, 15 questions. So really simple, straightforward, easy to answer questions. I think it takes 3 minutes or so. Go through and answer those questions. And then it will give you a scorecard on how ready your business is for a recession or a soft market. And it will give you an action plan to start addressing a low-hanging fruit and putting in a prioritized plan for you and your business. So you can find that companion resource, the Recession Readiness Assessment, at the URL icassessment.com. So the two letters IC for independent consultant, assessment.com. And at the end, it will also give you a recession readiness checklist. And that's an amazing tool. I would go take the assessment just to get that if I were you. In fact, I like looking at it every 6 months or so to just refresh and make sure that I haven't forgotten anything about the way I'm running my own business. So go check that out. All right, with that, let's dive into today's agenda. So first, we're going to talk about, is it true? Is it true that the market is soft? And you already know a little bit of the spoiler to this. We're going to go down both paths. It is partially true and it's also partially not true.
But the thing that I want to point out to you that I think is really important before we go down these two paths is that you have a confirmation bias, what's called a confirmation bias.
Because you are a human. All of us have this. So when we are thinking something, our brain is trained to find the evidence to prove ourselves right. We love being right. I think, especially as consultants, we love being right. I love being right.
So the point here is called confirmation bias.
So as we are thinking, or as we have a certain thought process in our brain, then our brain is trained to look for that thing, look for evidence of what it is that we're believing in order to prove ourselves true. I think I may have said this on the podcast before. I'll say this example again, though. I remember when I was 16 and I got a new car. Actually, it might have been when I was 18 and I was going to college. I got a new car. And I'm embarrassed to tell you what it was, but I'll tell you anyway. It was like a emerald green Eclipse, Mitsubishi Eclipse or something like that. I can't remember it exactly. I could be wrong, but directionally is right. Anyway, I had this car, super proud of it. It was kind of like a sports car sort of a thing. And I was just so excited about it. And I went out to visit a friend of mine in California. And all I saw were these emerald green Mitsubishi Eclipses on the road. It seemed as if everyone in California had these. Now, I can assure you that was not the case. But because my brain was so focused in on this and it was trained to be looking for these things, to give me evidence that this is an amazing car, look at these, I kept seeing them everywhere. So for you, our brain is trained in all sorts of different ways. That just gives you an example. But that's what we do is when we think, for example, the market is soft, then our brain is just seeking out like a heat-seeking missile to prove us right. So of course, you're going to find a lot of evidence. Of course, you're going to find news articles or proof that the market is soft. So I want to say that to you as we dive into this episode because it is so important. It is so important because when we see evidence of things, we think we're right, and then we think we're stuck with a soft market. You are not stuck with a soft market. Now, is the market partially soft? Yes, of course. I think it always is in different ways. And we want to go down the path of if it is true that it's soft, then what can you do? We'll do that here in a minute.
But before we even get to that part of the conversation today, I want to point out this confirmation bias to you so that you're aware of it and you realize that you're not feeding your brain an equal amount of inputs as a result of this confirmation bias.
The soft, quote unquote, soft market could be caused by so many different things, right? It could be our macroeconomic conditions. That doesn't mean that in your microcosm of the economy that it is truly a soft market. It could also be the time of year. For many of us, we slowed down in the summer. For many of your consulting buyers, they slowed down in the summer. And things are just, if you're listening to this in the real time and it's September, or maybe early October, whenever this episode goes live, now the work is picking back up again just because of the cyclical nature. The other thing that might be happening is, the budgeting is happening and things are starting to pick back up again, whereas things are more set in stone and just more business as usual in the summertime, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere.
So basically, at a high level, I just want to point out to you when we start asking ourselves this question, is it true that the market is soft? That you recognize that there is this confirmation bias, and there's also ebbs and flows from a macroeconomic perspective.
And notice that before you start answering the question, is it true for my piece of the consulting world or is it not? So with that, let's go down the two paths now. So many times we position questions in our mind about true or false, or yes or no, or black and white, right? We think about things in absolutes. And in this case, it is very much an and. The market is soft in different areas, and that doesn't have to be a problem for you. That doesn't have to be the case for you. So that's what we're going down today. That's why I wanted to walk you through this framework of first we're asking ourselves, is it true? And then we're saying, yes, it's true, and no, it's not true. And then we're going to go down each of those paths for ourselves to show you how to solve and work through this type of a scenario. So let's go down the path of it's true. So what? So now what? If it is true that the market is soft, let's start off from a strategy perspective. And then we're going to talk about the mindset perspective. You can't get away from me without talking about the mindset side. So it's true that the market is soft. Now what? So for you, think about that question, not from a place of panic or dread or doom, but just from a place of it's true that the market might be softer than it was 2 years ago or 4 years ago, whatever the number is. Now what? Now what do I want to do? Put your business owner hat on and purposefully think about and strategize how you can use that to your advantage in your business. This is not a situation if the market is soft that it means you're going out of business and you have to go back to searching for a full-time role, for example. This can be an advantage for you, but you've got to direct your mind into that space versus being afraid and panicked. So if the market is soft, let's say that it is partially soft, ask yourself, how do I want to respond to that? What might it look like for me to shift my services in some way? Perhaps it's shifting who you're offering your services to in some way. Maybe you've been targeting the operations organization within the industries that you're working with, and maybe they're not as, I'm just making this up. Don't quote me that this is a true scenario, but let's say that those COOs are not having as many urgent problems as the chief revenue officers. What might you be offering to the CROs in your industry relative to what you have expertise in that could solve problems for them? So you might shift who you're offering your services to or who your stakeholders are. You might slightly shift the industries that you're serving. Perhaps your industry is going through a more challenging time and there's a tangential industry where your services make a lot of sense and you can go over there and start building a market. Perhaps the type of services that you're offering can be shifted slightly. Maybe you've been offering longer term, higher priced engagements that take longer to sell. You could slim those down and start selling them in phases. I'm just giving you some examples here, right? Thinking about with your business owner hat on, what about this market feels soft to me? Even if I'm wrong, let's say I'm right. What about this market feels soft to me? And ask yourself the question, what opportunity could this present to me versus it being a penalty? Go do some market research. Re-engage with your network, re-engage with your industry, and going into communities and forums where your decision makers are interacting, where they might be reading or listening to different content, and start to understand where their head's at. And then align yourself to what they're worried about. This is an opportunity for you. It doesn't have to be, as I just said, a penalty. This can be an opportunity. Let me give you an example. I have a client who had been focusing on a lot of agile refinement. So her target market were CTOs in software type companies, more mid-size. At this point, we could argue, it's not true across the board, but we could argue that there is a more difficult business case to be made for refinement of agile processes. And so rather than continuing to go down that path full force to 100%, she took a step back and said, okay, let me just think about what are the CTOs that I sell to and I interact with and I work with and I love advising. What are they worried about right now? What keeps them up at night? What are they worried about? Will their business will look like at the end of the year if this problem isn't addressed? And of course, the answer becomes AI strategy. Of course, the answer becomes security holes. And as a result, she added those things to her offerings. She's talking to the same person, so she doesn't have to, create a new lead gen process. She's just slightly shifting the conversation with those individuals over to more AI and what is on the mind of that CTO from an AI perspective, from a security perspective, and has, as a result, built her pipeline and shifted the dynamics of that pipeline in that way. Hopefully, that gives you a tangible example to put this into action. Okay, so now let's go down the path. When I ask the question, is it true? And we say, yes, it's true. The market is soft. Now what? I want to make sure that we don't overlook or skip over the mindset side of this. We just talked about the strategy side of this. What about the mindset side of this? Of course, if you're thinking the market is soft, you would be worried. You would be afraid. You would be stressed. You would be nervous. You would be anxious. You might even feel panicked. That is normal for you as a human. All of us would feel that way if we're worried the market is soft and we're not going to be able to land new clients as a result. But when you are trying to apply the strategy that we just discussed from a place of fear or panic or anxiousness, it's going to be really hard to unlock your problem solving capabilities. It's going to be very hard to unlock your ability to innovate and iterate your business. It can create that freeze state in our nervous system, right? Where we're just kind of feel panicked about the soft market. And as a result, we just kind of feel stuck. We don't know what to do, as if we're frozen. Because of this, it's incredibly important to address your emotional state first as a business owner. This is a skill set that you need to have as a business owner. So many of us were taught to just ignore our emotions or power through our emotions or completely pretend that we had no emotions when we were in corporate. You are a business owner now. You are an entrepreneur now. It is your responsibility to be able to manage your emotional state as part of that, wearing that hat. And so the process here, if you believe that it's true to some degree that the market is soft and it's creating fear or worry or anxiety or panic for you, you've got to address that emotional state first in order for you then to be able to innovate from a place of more productive emotions. Now, let me be clear. Sometimes when I say this, people think, well, it's going to take a month or 2 months or a change in the economy to feel more confident or less worried. That is not the case. You can, in a micro way, address these emotions, redirect your emotions out of fear, worry, and panic into a more productive emotional state in a 5 minute, in a 3 minute, in a 30-second way. It's about getting very clear about what your current emotional state is and starting to shift that in a very purposeful way into a different emotional state, such as even neutral. You know what? I'm going to move from I feel panicked or worried. I just want to feel neutral about this. Not worried, not excited, not optimistic, but just neutral. And then moving on to solve and innovate from that emotional state. So, from a mindset perspective, this is a really important part of this equation to help you move forward and address what your business plan looks like when the market is soft or when the market is softer. All right. So that is the type of work that I do with my clients so often, is helping them in their mindset and redirecting and teaching them these very specific, tangible tools to redirect their emotional state. And I want to bring that to your attention as well today. That is an important part of your practice. Okay. So we went down the path. First, we asked ourselves, is it true that the market is soft? Or is it true? You could even ask the question, is it true the market is softer? And then we went down the path of, yes, it is true. Now what? And we talked about strategy for addressing that. And we talked about the mindset from which you want to build that strategy. And now we want to move over to the side of the equation where it is not true. It's not true. So let's go down that path and think through that in a productive way. So let's say you ask yourself the question, you notice you're thinking, oh no, the market is soft or the market is softer. And you ask yourself the question, is it true? And then you want to go down purposefully, even if your brain is trying to argue with you very much want to go down the path of, no, it isn't true. Now what? Again, this is not a black and white situation. This is not a cut and dry situation. This is a situation where it can be true and not true at the same time. So from a, sorry, I'm getting a double negative here. We're going down the path of, it is not true. So now what? It is not true. So now what? You might already be arguing with yourself or with me. It is true, Melissa. So this is a waste of time. That is not the case. Again, this is not a cut and dry situation. And you want to really be open to, again, you're a business owner. You want to be open to thinking about, if it's not true, the market is soft. If it's not true, the market is softer. Now what do I want to do with my business? Listen, if you're resisting going down this path because you believe 100% that the market is soft or the market is softer, and you're not willing to go down this path with me about, let's think about if it's not softer or if it's not soft, then all you're doing is you're arguing for your limitations here. So just go with me here for a minute and entertain the idea that the market is not softer. Entertain the idea that there is no impact to your ability to land new clients. So now what? And this is where you've got to get honest with yourself. If it is not true that the market is soft, now what do you do with that?
And this is where you've got to start asking yourself some really powerful questions and being really honest with yourself, especially about where the confirmation bias is getting introduced. And you're constantly looking for that evidence and finding it and reinforcing the idea that the market is soft.
So, down the path of, is it true the market is soft? And when we say, no, it is not true, what do you do with that? What you do with that is start asking yourself some really high quality questions so that you can understand where this thought process is coming from and start redirecting it. So, for example, you might ask yourself, in what way am I using this quote unquote soft market to make excuses for myself? Honestly, it's kind of great when we've got all these headlines, the market is soft or the recession is coming or whatever the things are. It kind of lets us off the hook, right? Well, it's just harder to sell business right now, or no one, my ideal clients aren't really hiring for the kind of work that I do, or mostly the type of work is going to McKinsey instead of to independents. Because the market is quote unquote soft, all of a sudden you've created all these excuses for yourself, all these justifications for why your pipeline is empty. But if we're going down the path that it's not true, the market is soft, you've got to really look in the mirror and say, if the market's not soft, what excuses am I making here? Ask yourself, what am I avoiding? Ask yourself, what am I not willing to do? I'm hiding behind this market is soft. What am I not willing to do? If the market's not soft, now what am I left with? Ask yourself, what questions aren't you asking yourself? If you're asking yourself, how is the economy soft? You could answer that all day long. That is not useful. That's going to just keep reinforcing your worry and ultimately create that anxiety storm, the fear storm. Instead, redirect that. In what ways can I use this economy to my business's advantage? So that's the framework for you when you're thinking about something that is not productive for your business, such as the market is soft, and going down both of those paths after you've asked yourself, is it true? Is it true? Then you go down the path of, so now what? And if it isn't true, then you've got to be really honest with yourself about how you're using that thing as an excuse and how you can redirect yourself to more productive internal conversations with yourself about how to address any challenges that you've got in your business, such as an empty or emptier pipeline, or a pipeline that doesn't have a value in it right now to reach the goals that you've set for yourself. So, as we're wrapping up today, I just want to walk you through what we just did so that you can leverage this as a framework. if you're thinking the market is soft, that's not a problem. Just let that be partially true. Figure out how to turn it into an advantage for yourself versus a problem. For some of us, we go all the way down the path of this is a deal breaker, That's not the case. So in order to get yourself into this space where you're able to really productively solve for this particular challenge, that the market could be soft or softer, you want to first really get yourself into that either a high quality emotional state, such as productive or innovative, or I'm feeling really creative, I'm feeling really inspired. That's an example of a high quality emotional state. Or if you can't get there, get yourself into even just a neutral state versus a discouraged or frustrated or worried or anxious emotional state. So, step one, getting yourself into that emotional, high quality or neutral emotional state. Then, step two, you want to be asking yourself really high quality questions as a business owner. If it's true, now what? How can it not be true? If it's not true, what am I doing here that I'm using as an excuse? And those questions I gave you around that. Just as an aside here to help you put that particular step into action, one of the things I love to do to just make a little bit of space for myself when I'm in this kind of a conundrum is I love to think about myself as if I were XYZ person. So think of a person in your life who probably isn't worried about the market being soft. What would they be asking themselves? It creates some distance for you. That's a great way to do this. So you want to be asking yourself high quality questions as a business owner. So step one was get into that high quality or even neutral emotional state. Step two is to ask yourself those high quality questions as a business owner. And you can get yourself into the mindset of another person to help you do that if that's useful. You want to be asking yourself, yes, it's true. So now what am I going to do? No, it's not true. So why am I doing this to myself? What kind of excuses am I creating? And address those for yourself. Then this third step is to innovate from that place, from that high quality emotional state and those high quality questions you're asking yourself. Figure out how you want to pivot a little bit. Figure out what you want to introduce into your business that you haven't yet approached. Figure out what you might want to adjust. And then go out and the step 4 is to test that. Go test that and see what the market response is. And then finally, step 5 is as you're getting feedback in the way of no one wants to have conversations about this, or I'm kind of getting into the middle of a sales cycle, but the contracts aren't going anywhere. Or, you know what, I just landed 2 new clients with this new idea that I pivoted into. Whatever your results are, then you want to take the results from what you're testing out and iterate those, adjust those, improve upon them. So that is the framework that I will leave you with today in order to address what to do when the market is soft. I look forward to seeing you here again next week. Take care.
Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melissalieberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.